The world is mostly water, a vast and rhythmic blue that stretches far beyond the reach of the eye. And at the very heart of this moisture is the Pacific. It is not merely an ocean but a presence, a great quiet that covers a full third of our planet with a blanket of rolling swells and deep, silent canyons if you were to look down from a great height. Past the soft white wisps of the clouds, you would see that the earth is draped in this single, shimmering fabric, a velvet expanse that holds the sunlight in its ripples and the moonlight in its depths. It is so wide that the sun takes many hours just to cross from one shore to the other, moving slowly over the endless crests of waves that rise and fall like the steady breathing of a giant in a deep, dreamless sleep. There is a peace in this scale, a sense that the world is large enough to hold every thought and every worry, dissolving them into the salt spray and the cool, dark currents that move beneath the surface. Imagine for a moment the sheer weight of that water, pressing down with a gentle, constant gravity, cradling the floor of the ocean where the mountains are taller than any on land and the valleys are so deep they have never known the touch of the sun. Up here on the surface, the air is thick with the scent of salt and the cline, metallic tang of the spray. The wind moves with a soft, persistent hum, combing the tops of the waves and turning them into fine, white lace that dissolves back into the blue almost as soon as it forms. There is no hurry here. The Pacific does not rush. It simply exists, a vast cradle of life and motion that has remained unchanged for millions of years, watching the stars turn overhead in their slow, circular dance. When the first people began to look out from the edges of the continents, they saw not a barrier, but a path. They stood on the warm sands of distant shores, feeling the grit of the earth between their toes and the cooling breeze of the evening on their skin. And they watched the horizon. To them, the ocean was a living thing, a neighbor with 1,000 voices. They listened to the way the water lapped against the shore, a repetitive, melodic sound that mimics the beating of a heart. They noticed how the birds would fly out into the blue and return with the evening, their wings catching the orange glow of the setting sun. There was a quiet confidence in the way the clouds gathered on the edge of the world, signaling islands that lay just out of sight, tucked behind the curve of the earth like secrets waiting to be shared. To understand the Pacific, one must understand the rhythm of the tides, the slow inhalation and exhalation of the sea. Twice a day, the water creeps up the sand, smoothing over the footprints of the day and filling the tide pools with fresh, cool life. It brings with it the treasures of the deep, polished bits of coral, smooth stones, and the empty shells of creatures that lived their lives in the swaying forests of kelp. And then, just as slowly, the water retreats, leaving the shore glistening and renewed, a clean slate under the wide, open sky. This movement is governed by the moon, a distant and pale companion that pulls at the edges of the world with a gentle, invisible hand. It is a relationship of perfect balance, a celestial clock that ticks in centuries rather than seconds. In the center of this great blue expanse, the water is a color so deep it feels like looking into the sky at midnight. It is a solid, comforting indigo, broken only by the occasional flash of a silver fish or the slow, arching back of a whale rising to take a single misty breath. These great travelers of the deep move through the water with a grace that defies their size, gliding through the currents as if they were weightless. They speak to one another in low, humming songs that travel for hundreds of miles through the heavy silence of the water. A long-distance conversation that has no need for words. Their world is one of soft light and filtered shadows, where the sun reaches down in long, golden fingers illuminating the drifting plankton like dust motes in a sunlit room. As we move further away from the coastlines, the sounds of the land fade away entirely. The rustle of trees, the calls of land birds, and the hum of life on the shore are replaced by the singular, multifaceted sound of the water. It is a layering of noises. The deep thrum of the swell, the hiss of the foam, and the sharp, bright splash of a leaping fish. If you were to close your eyes and listen, you would hear the sound of the entire planet breathing. It is a white noise that fills the mind, smoothing out the jagged edges of the day and replacing them with a steady, rocking motion. There is a profound safety in being surrounded by so much space, a feeling of being held in the palm of a very large and very kind hand. The islands that dot this ocean are like emeralds dropped onto a blue silk sheet. They are small, fragile places where the green of the jungle meets the white of the sand and the turquoise of the shallows. Each island is a world unto itself, protected by the vastness of the water that surrounds it. On these shores, the air smells of crushed hibiscus and damp earth, a sweet and heavy perfume that lingers in the heat of the afternoon. The palm trees lean out over the water, their fronds clicking together in the breeze like the sound of soft rain on a tin roof. Life here moves at the pace of the growing coral, a slow and steady accumulation of beauty over vast stretches of time. Long ago, travelers would set out across this water in vessels made of wood and fiber, held together by the skill of hands that knew the tension of every rope and the grain of every plank. They did not have maps of paper or instruments of metal. Instead, they read the world around them. They knew the feel of the currents against the hull, a subtle vibration that told them which way the water was moving. They watched the stars, those cold and steady points of light that wheel across the sky in an endless, predictable pattern. They knew that when a certain star rose at the horizon, it pointed the way to a home they had not yet seen. They lived in harmony with the ocean, trusting the wind to fill their sails and the water to carry them safely to the next shore. The Pacific is a place of deep memory. It holds the stories of every rainstorm that has ever fallen into its waves, and every sunrise that has turned its surface into a sheet of hammered gold. It is a reservoir of coolness in a world that can sometimes feel too bright and too fast. When the clouds gather and the rain begins to fall, it does so with a soft, drumming persistence, a million tiny impacts that smooth the surface of the sea. The smell of the rain on the salt water is one of the cleanest scents in the world, a fragrance of renewal and stillness. Underneath the rain, the ocean remains calm, a vast reservoir of silence that absorbs the sound and the motion, turning it into a gentle vibration that settles deep in the bones. As evening comes to the center of the ocean, the light begins to change. The brilliant blue of the day softens into a pale violet, then a dusty mauve, and finally a deep, velvety charcoal. The horizon line disappears, and the sea and the sky become one single, infinite space. The stars begin to appear, one by one, reflecting in the still patches of water between the swells, so that it feels as though you are floating in the very center of the universe. The air grows cool and crisp, carrying the faint, lingering warmth of the sun-drenched day. It is a time for stillness, for leaning back and watching the slow rotation of the cosmos, feeling the gentle rise and fall of the water beneath you. Everything in this great third of the world is connected by the water. The currents that start in the cold, crisp south travel for thousands of miles, warming as they go, bringing nutrients and life to the coral reefs of the equator. The wind that brushes the surface in one hemisphere eventually reaches the other. A continuous cycle of movement and exchange. There are no borders here, only transitions, the way the water turns from the bright green of the shallows to the navy of the deep, or the way the cool morning air gradually warms into the golden glow of noon. It is a world of gradients, of soft edges and gradual shifts. In the deep trenches, miles below the surface, there is a different kind of peace. It is a world of absolute darkness and incredible stillness, where the temperature never changes and the passage of time is marked only by the slow fall of organic snow from the layers above. Here the pressure is a constant, heavy embrace, and the creatures that live here move with a slow, ghostly elegance. They are made of soft tissues and glowing lights, drifting through the dark like lanterns in a midnight garden. Even here in the furthest reaches of the planet, the Pacific is a place of life, a quiet and hidden sanctuary where the noise of the surface can never reach. To think of the Pacific is to think of the word vast, but it is not a frightening vastness. It is the vastness of a large, comfortable room or the expanse of a clear, moonlit night. It is a space that invites you to let go of the small details and find comfort in the grand design. The ocean does not ask anything of us. It simply remains, a constant and rhythmic presence that reminds us of the slow, enduring pulse of the earth. It is the beginning and the end of so many journeys. A place where the horizon is always a promise of something more. Something quiet, something steady. As we drift further into the heart of this watery world, the sounds of the shore become a distant memory. The only thing that matters is the rhythm of the swell and the soft hiss of the air moving over the water. The mind begins to mimic the ocean, letting go of the choppy waves of thought and settling into the long, slow undulations of the deep. There is a sense of weightlessness, as if the water is supporting not just the body, but the spirit as well. The salt air fills the lungs, clean and cool, and with every breath, the world feels a little larger, a little quieter, and a little more at peace. The sun continues its slow journey toward the west, casting long, shimmering paths of light across the water. These paths look like golden roads, leading toward the edge of the world where the sky meets the sea in a soft, blurred line. There is no end to this water, only a continuous loop of blue and silver, a cycle of tides and currents that has no beginning and no end. It is a place where time feels different, stretched out like the long shadows of the afternoon, until a single moment feels as wide and as deep as the ocean itself. We find ourselves now in the very center of this expanse, far from any land, where the water is at its most pure and its most silent. The swells here are long and low, moving with a deliberate, unhurried grace. They carry the weight of the entire planet's weather. But here they are simply a heartbeat. The surface of the water is like polished glass, reflecting the soft, fading colors of the sky. As the light dims, the ocean seems to pull a blanket of shadow over itself, preparing for the long, quiet hours of the night. The temperature of the water here is a constant, cooling presence, a heat sink that regulates the breath of the world. It stores the warmth of the sun and releases it slowly, a gentle exchange that keeps the balance of the seasons. Beneath the surface, the great currents continue their silent work, moving vast volumes of water from one side of the globe to the other. A conveyor belt of life and energy that never tires and never falters. It is a system of perfect efficiency and profound calm, a machine made of water and gravity and light. In this space, there is nothing to do but listen to the silence. It is a rich, textured silence, filled with the subtle sounds of the natural world. It is the sound of the wind, the sound of the water, and the sound of the world turning on its axis. It is a sound that has been here since the very beginning, a lullaby that the earth sings to itself as it moves through the stars. It is a song of permanence and of change, of the immense power of the small and the gentle strength of the large. The islands we passed earlier are now far behind us, their green peaks dissolving into the haze of the horizon. They remain there quiet and still, cradled by the reefs and the lagoons. The birds have returned to their nests, and the land has settled into the cool shadows of the evening. Out here on the open water, we are in the realm of the eternal. The stars are brighter now, undimmed by the lights of any city, casting a soft, silver glow over the crests of the waves. The Milky Way stretches across the sky like a river of light, a celestial mirror to the ocean below. As the world turns and the Pacific moves into the deep shadows of the night, the water seems to thicken, becoming a heavy, protective layer that wraps around the earth. The motion of the swells becomes even more rhythmic, a steady, hypnotic pulse that lulls everything into a state of rest. The deep indigo of the water turns to a soft, matte black, and the only light comes from the bioluminescence of the tiny creatures below, flashing like underwater fireflies as the water moves around them. It is a world of soft glows and gentle shadows, a place where the boundaries between the sea and the sky finally fade away entirely. We are part of this rhythm now, a small point in a vast and beautiful design. There is no need for hurry, no need for effort. The ocean carries us as it carries the whales, the ships, and the drifting clouds. It is a cradle that never stops rocking, a song that never stops playing. The air is cool, the water is deep, and the world is very, very large. We can rest here, in the center of the blue, knowing that the Pacific will continue its slow, rhythmic breathing long after the sun has set and the stars have made their journey across the sky. The vastness of the water is a comfort, a reminder that there is always room for stillness, always room for peace. As the night deepens, the ocean becomes even more quiet, the swells even more gentle. The world is reduced to the sound of the water and the feeling of the cool breeze. It is a perfect, unbroken circle of calm, a third of the planet dedicated to the art of being still. And as we settle into this stillness, we begin to feel the weight of the day lifting, replaced by the light, buoyant feeling of floating on a sea that has no end. The currents beneath us are moving toward the west, toward the islands and the coral reefs that wait in the path of the sun. They move with a steady, quiet purpose, carrying the story of the ocean with them. Soon we will follow those currents, moving away from the deep, open water and toward the places where the sea meets the land in a spray of white foam and a rustle of palm fronds. But for now, we remain here, in the heart of the great quiet, letting the Pacific hold us in its vast, blue embrace as the stars watch over the water and the world sleeps in the cradle of the waves. The starlight rests upon the surface of the deep like a dusting of silver sand, and beneath that quiet shimmer, the earth is breathing in a slow, tectonic rhythm. We move now from the open heart of the blue toward the very edges, where the water meets the land in a great, curving embrace that stretches for thousands of miles. This is a place of ancient foundations, a vast circle of stone and steam that cradles the ocean, known to some as the Ring of Fire, though tonight it feels more like a ring of glowing embers tucked beneath a blanket of moss and mist. Imagine the earth not as something rigid, but as something supple and alive, shifting with the patience of a mountain. Along these distant fringes, the great plates of the world touch one another with a gentle, heavy pressure like two giants leaning shoulder to shoulder in the dark. There is a profound stillness in this movement, a slow motion dance that has been unfolding for millions of years, creating the high peaks and the deep trenches that define the shape of our world. As we travel along the western coast of the Americas, the air smells of salt and damp cedar. The mountains here rise up from the surf, their tops often hidden in soft, gray clouds that drift inland like wandering thoughts. These peaks were born from the heat deep within the ground, pushed upward by the quiet strength of the cooling earth. In the valleys between them, the soil is dark and rich, fed by the minerals of the deep. Here, the forests are thick with ferns that uncurl their fronds in the morning fog, and the sound of the waves is a constant, low hum that vibrates through the soles of your feet. It is a comforting weight, the feeling of the land holding its ground against the infinite reach of the sea. The rocks are smooth and cool to the touch, worn down by the patient licking of the tides. And in the tide pools, small creatures move with a slow, rhythmic grace tucked away in their miniature worlds of emerald seaweed and pale pink shells. Following the curve northward, the climate cools into a soft, silvery light. The Aleutian Islands stretch out like a string of smooth pearls dropped across the gray silk of the northern sea. Here, the volcanoes are often draped in snow, their white slopes blending into the pale sky until they seem almost invisible. There is no fire here tonight, only the soft hiss of steam rising from hidden vents, warming the patches of grass where the foxes sleep. The steam smells faintly of the deep earth, a scent of minerals and rain, and it rises in thin, lazy plumes that vanish into the mist. It is a landscape of soft edges and muted colors, where the black volcanic sand meets the white foam of the waves in a perfect, peaceful contrast. You can almost feel the warmth radiating from the ground beneath the frost, a gentle reminder that the world is warm at its core, even when the air is crisp and cold. As the curve of the ring carries us toward the east, toward the islands of Japan and the coastlines of Asia, the light turns a soft, Golden amber, the mountains here are steep and draped in velvet grain, their slopes carved by ancient rains into soft, rolling folds in the quiet villages that sit at the feet of these giants. The smell of wood smoke drifts through the evening air, mingling with the scent of damp earth and pine needles. The people here have lived in harmony with the rhythm of the earth for a very long time, building their homes with wood and paper that flexes and breathes with the wind. There is a deep respect for the power of the stone beneath them, a quiet understanding that we are guests upon a living surface. The hot springs or onsens bubble gently in the mountain shadows, their waters clear and heavy with the warmth of the deep. To sit by the edge of such a pool is to feel the tension leave your limbs, as the steam rises to meet the cool night air and the stars reflect in the still, dark water. Further south, the ring breaks into 1,000 emerald fragments. The islands of Southeast Asia and the vast archipelagos that dot the warm, shallow seas. Here, the water is the color of a robin's egg, clear and still, revealing the white sands and the waving fans of coral below. The heat of the sun is stored in the stone, and as the day fades, the rocks release that warmth back into the air, creating a soft, humid breeze that smells of jasmine and salt. The volcanoes here are lush and overgrown, their craters filled with deep, still lakes that mirror the passing clouds. There is no hurry in this part of the world. The palm trees lean over the water as if listening to the secrets of the tide, and the only sound is the soft rustle of their leaves. The earth is constant and steady, providing a firm foundation for the vibrant life that clings to its edges. We move further down the curve, toward the islands of New Zealand, where the land is young and the air is filled with the scent of crushed ferns and cold mountain water. The southern Alps rise up like a spine of blue glass, their glaciers moving with a silence that is deeper than sleep. In the geothermal valleys, the ground hums with a low, melodic vibration, and the mud pools plop and bubble with a slow, rhythmic consistency that acts as a heartbeat for the island. It is a sound that invites you to close your eyes and breathe in time with the earth. The light here is long and soft, casting deep shadows across the golden tussock grass. And as the sun dips below the horizon, the sky turns a deep, velvety violet. The ring of fire is not a circle of destruction, but a circle of creation, a place where the earth is constantly renewing itself, adding a new layer of stone here, a new spring of warm water there. In the deep trenches that run alongside these coasts, the ocean floor drops away into a profound and heavy darkness. But even here, there is a quiet activity. Tiny vents on the sea floor release warmth into the freezing depths, creating small oases where life flourishes in the stillness. It is a world of slow movements and soft glows, far removed from the wind and the waves above. The pressure of the water is a gentle, all-encompassing weight, like a heavy quilt pulled up to the chin. Everything is suspended in a state of perfect balance, the heat of the earth meeting the cold of the sea in a silent, eternal embrace. This is the foundation of the Pacific, the sturdy rim that holds the great volume of the ocean in its place, ensuring that the waters remain calm and contained. As we look back over the vast curve we have traveled, from the snowy peaks of the north to the tropical forests of the equator, we see a world that is held together by these slow, Tectonic breaths, the ring of fire is a quiet guardian, a circle of ancient stone that has watched the moon rise and set for eons. It does not rush, it does not clamor. It simply exists, a steady presence at the edge of the blue. The rocks are cooling, the steam is thinning into the night air, and the great plates of the earth are settling into their positions for the hours of darkness. The mountains are dark silhouettes against a sky filled with a billion distant suns, and the sound of the sea against the shore is a lullaby that never ends. The warmth of the earth's interior is a hidden comfort, a soft glow that remains even when the surface is cold. It is the heat that fuels the springs, the steam that warms the mountain air, and the energy that keeps the world in motion. As we drift away from the edges and back toward the deep center of the ocean, we carry the memory of that warmth with us. The land is firm and the water is deep, and between the two there is a perfect, lasting peace. The great circle is complete, a ring of steady stone and gentle heat that cradles the Pacific in a long, quiet sleep. The air is becoming stiller now, the scent of the sea growing faint as we move into the heart of the silence, where the only movement is the slow, rhythmic pulse of the tide. The earth beneath the waves is cooling, the minerals settling into the cracks of the stone, and the deep trenches are filled with a silence that is heavy and sweet. There is a sense of profound safety in this vastness, a feeling that everything is exactly where it is meant to be. The mountains will be there in the morning. The springs will still be warm, and the ring of fire will continue its slow, patient work of holding the world together. But for now, the work is done. The steam has faded into the mist. The embers have tucked themselves beneath the moss, and the great plates of the world are still. We are moving now into a space of pure blue, where the edges of the world fade away and only the gentle, rocking motion of the deep remains, guiding us softly toward the next quiet thought. In the soft, blue silence of the open water, there is a sense of infinite patience, a feeling that time itself has slowed down to match the long, rolling pulse of the swells. As we move across this vast expanse, the deep indigo beneath us begins to shift, very gradually into a lighter shade of turquoise, signaling that something solid is rising up from the dark floor of the sea to meet the light of the sun. These are the islands, the small, green jewels scattered across the velvet cloth of the Pacific. And to understand them, we must look down through the clear, still water to the very foundations of the earth. Long ago, beneath the weight of the immense ocean, the ground began to stir with a quiet, persistent warmth, not with a sudden burst, but with a slow and steady breathing of the earth. Deep fissures opened in the seabed, allowing the inner heat of the world to seep upward in the form of molten stone, cooling almost instantly as it touched the cold, dark currents of the abyss. This stone piled upon itself, layer by layer, century after century, forming great underwater mountains that grew with the unhurried grace of a tree rings thickening in a forest. We can imagine the silence of this process, the way the glowing rock turned to smooth, black glass in the deep, creating vast cathedrals of stone that no human eye would see for millions of years. Slowly, these peaks climbed higher, reaching through the different layers of the sea, passing through the twilight zone where the light begins to fade. and finally breaking the surface to feel the first touch of the salt air and the warmth of the overhead sun. When an island first emerges, it is a dark and lonely place, a mound of cooling basalt standing firm against the endless horizon. The air smells of salt and wet stone, and the only sound is the rhythmic washing of the waves against the new shore. But the Pacific is never truly still, and soon the elements begin their gentle work of softening the hard edges of the rock. The rain falls in soft, tropical curtains washing over the stone and settling into the small crevices, while the wind carries the faint, sweet scent of life from distant lands. Tiny seeds no heavier than a breath find their way across the thousands of miles of water, drifting on the breeze or hitching a ride on the feathers of a passing bird. They settle into the cooling ash and the weathered stone, and with the help of the sun, they begin to sprout, turning the black slopes into a tapestry of soft, vibrant green. Imagine the first ferns unfurling their delicate fronds in the morning mist, their leaves damp with dew, as they take hold in the new earth. Over time, the forests grow thick and lush, filled with the sound of wind rustling through broad leaves and the occasional sleepy call of a bird nesting in the canopy. The islands become sanctuaries of stillness, places where the pace of life is dictated only by the rising and falling of the tides and the slow movement of the clouds across the sky. As we look closer at these islands, we see that they are not all the same, for the ocean has a way of changing them as the ages pass. Some islands are high and rugged, with peaks that hide in the clouds and silver waterfalls that tumble down emerald cliffs into quiet pools below. In these places, the air is cool and smells of damp moss and crushed hibiscus flowers. You can almost feel the softness of the mist on your skin as you walk along the edge of a mountain stream. The water clear and cold as it flows over smooth, round pebbles, but there are other islands, older and more tired, that have begun to sink back into the sea from which they rose. These are the atolls, the delicate rings of coral that remain when the central mountain has vanished beneath the waves. The story of an atoll is one of a beautiful partnership between the stone and the sea. As the volcanic island slowly subsided under its own weight, tiny creatures called coral polyps began to build their homes in the shallow, sunlit waters around the fringes of the land. They built upon the skeletons of those who came before them, creating vast underwater gardens of intricate shapes and colors. Pale pinks, soft yellows, and deep purples. As the mountain sank further and further, the coral kept growing upward, racing toward the light until at last the mountain was gone, leaving only a circle of white sand and palm trees surrounding a lagoon of still, crystal water. The lagoon of an atoll is perhaps the most peaceful place on the entire planet. The great waves of the open Pacific break far out on the outer reef, their power spent in a white foam that hums with a distant, low frequency inside the circle of the reef. The water is as smooth as a mirror, reflecting the pale blue of the sky and the drifting white clouds. The sand here is as fine as powdered sugar, made of crushed shells and coral that have been tumbled by the sea for 1,000 years until they are soft to the touch. If you were to sit on the shore of such a lagoon, you would feel the warmth of the sun-baked sand beneath you and the gentle, cooling breath of the trade winds in your hair. The only movement is the slow sway of the coconut palms, their long fronds clattering softly like the sound of a distant rain. The water in the lagoon is shallow and warm. And if you look down, you can see the small, colorful fish darting among the coral heads, their scales shimmering like jewels in the filtered light. It is a world contained within itself, a perfect balance of earth and water, where nothing is hurried and every moment stretches out into a long, comfortable sigh. There is a deep rhythm to the life of these islands, a sense that they are part of a much larger, slower journey. The earth beneath the Pacific is not a fixed thing, but a collection of great plates that move with the deliberation of a glacier. As these plates drift across the hot spots of the mantle, new islands are born in a line, like a trail of breadcrumbs left across the blue. We can see this in the long chains of islands that stretch for thousands of miles, each one a different age, each one at a different stage of its life. The youngest islands are tall and fiery, still feeling the warmth of their birth, while the oldest are mere specks of sand, barely holding their heads above the tide. This movement is so slow that it cannot be felt, yet it shapes the very map of our world. It reminds us that even the most solid ground is part of a flowing, changing story, a quiet dance that has been going on since the beginning of time. The islands are travelers just as we are, moving across the face of the deep at a pace that invites us to let go of our own small worries and simply drift along with them. As evening begins to fall over the archipelago, the light turns to a soft, golden amber, casting long shadows across the valleys and the lagoons. The heat of the day radiates back from the dark volcanic stones, warming the air as the first stars begin to blink into existence in the darkening sky. The scent of the night-blooming jasmine begins to drift on the breeze, sweet and heavy mixing with the climb, sharp smell of the salt spray. On the high islands, the clouds gather around the peaks like soft, woolly blankets settling in for the night. Down on the shore, the tide is coming in, the water creeping slowly up the sand, erasing the footprints of the day and leaving the beach smooth and pristine once more. The sound of the ocean is a constant, low lullaby, a rhythmic pulse that seems to beat in time with our own breathing. It is a sound that has not changed for millions of years, the sound of the earth's great heart beating against the shore. In the quiet of the island night, the boundaries between the land, the sea, and the sky seem to dissolve. The stars are reflected so clearly in the still water of the lagoon that it feels as if you are floating in the center of a vast, sparkling sphere. There is no noise here from the world of men, no humming of engines or glow of artificial lights. There is only the wind, the water, and the ancient, enduring presence of the stone. The trees stand tall and silent, their roots reaching deep into the earth, anchoring the island against the vastness of the surrounding blue. We can imagine the creatures of the island settling down for their rest, the birds tucking their heads under their wings in the high branches, the crabs retreating into their cool burrows in the sand, and the fish finding quiet nooks within the coral reef. Everything is coming to a point of stillness, a moment of perfect repose where the day's growth is finished and the night's healing begins. As we linger in this peaceful place, we feel the weight of the day lifting, replaced by a sense of profound calm. The islands, formed in fire and shaped by water, stand as a testament to the beauty of slow, patient change. They remind us that there is a time for rising and a time for sinking, a time for growth and a time for rest. The water that surrounds them is not a barrier, but a cradle holding them gently as they make their long journey across the world. The air is cool now, and the soft rustle of the palms is the only melody in the dark. We find ourselves sinking deeper into the softness of the moment, our thoughts becoming as light as the foam on the crest of a wave. The vastness of the Pacific no longer feels overwhelming, but rather like a great, warm quilt that covers the earth, protecting all that dwells within its embrace. The islands continue their silent vigil, their dark silhouettes resting against the velvet sky, while the deep currents below continue their unhurried work. There is a sense of safety in this permanence, a feeling that the world is exactly as it should be, moving at its own pace, guided by laws that are as old as the stars. We breathe in the cool, night air filled with the scent of the sea and the sleeping forest, and we feel a deep connection to the earth beneath us. The motion of the waves is a gentle hand, rocking us toward a place of quiet reflection, where the only thing that matters is the soft, steady rhythm of the breath. The world is wide and the ocean is deep, but here on the edge of the land, we are held in a peace that passes all understanding. The light of the moon begins to silver the surface of the water, creating a path of shimmering light that stretches out toward the horizon, inviting us to follow it into the heart of the night. The shadows on the island grow softer, blurring the lines between the trees and the hills until everything is a single dark tapestry of rest. The sound of the reef is now just a whisper, a faint reminder of the great world outside the lagoon, while inside the stillness is absolute. We are drifting now, moving away from the solid ground and back into the gentle embrace of the water, where the memories of the islands begin to fade into a soft, green haze. The warmth of the volcanic stone, the scent of the ferns, and the white sand of the atolls all become part of a dream, a quiet story told by the sea to the sky. As the islands slip behind us into the mist of the night, we find ourselves floating in a space where time has no meaning, and the only direction is down, into the deep, welcoming silence of the heart of the ocean. The silence of the deep ocean is a heavy, velvet blanket, but as we rise slowly back toward the surface, we find that the water is never truly still. It moves with a slow and rhythmic purpose, a great circulatory system that breathes life into the world. Imagine the Pacific not as a static body of water, but as a series of vast, winding rivers within the sea, flowing without banks, guided only by the rotation of the earth and the gentle pull of the wind. These are the currents, the invisible threads that stitch the distant corners of the globe together. They are warm and cool, salt-heavy and light, moving at a pace that matches a slow, steady heartbeat. There is no hurry here. The water has all the time in the world to travel from the frozen edges of the south to the sun-drenched lagoons of the equator. It is a journey that takes years, a long and patient wandering through the blue. If you were to float upon the surface, cradled by the swell, you might feel the subtle tug of the North Pacific gyre. It is a slow, clockwise circle, a carousel of water that spans thousands of miles. It begins in the warmth of the tropics, where the sun sits high and golden, heating the top layers of the sea until they are as mild as a summer bath. This warm water is pushed westward by the trade winds. Those steady, dependable breezes that have hummed across the waves for eons. The water moves in long, liquid ribbons carrying the heat of the sun toward the coast of Asia. There is a softness to this movement, a constant murmuring flow that smooths out the surface of the world. The air here smells of salt and warm light, a clean and expansive scent that fills the lungs and settles the mind. As this warm water reaches the edges of the western islands, it turns upward following the curve of the land. This is the Kuroshio, the Black Stream, named for the deep, dark indigo of its clear depths. It is a river of warmth in a cooler sea, bringing the mildness of the south to the rocky shores of the north. You can imagine the steam rising very faintly where the warm breath of the current meets the crisp air of the northern latitudes. It flows past the forested hills of Japan, where the scent of cedar and damp earth drifts out to meet the brine. The water here is thick with life, but it is a quiet life, a rhythmic pulse of silver fish moving in unison, guided by the same invisible hand that moves the tide. Everything is connected by this liquid motion, a sequence of events that unfolds with the grace of a slow-motion dance. Across the vast span of the Northern Ocean, the current begins to cool, turning eastward toward the rugged coastlines of the Americas. Now it is the North Pacific Current, a wide and wandering flow that carries the memory of the tropics into the bracing air of the temperate zones. The light here is different, a pale and silvery blue that reflects off the white caps. The water feels heavier now, more substantial as it begins to sink and swirl. It moves toward the great forests of the Pacific Northwest, where the giant firs and redwoods stand as silent sentinels. The current brings with it a gentle mist, a soft fog that rolls over the waves and settles among the trees. This fog is the breath of the ocean, a cool and damp embrace that hushes the sound of the world. It smells of pine needles and wet stone, a fragrance that invites you to pull a blanket closer and listen to the distant, muffled lowing of a boy in the haze. Further south, the cycle continues, as the California current carries this cooled water back toward the equator. It moves along the golden cliffs and sandy beaches, a slow and steady progression that regulates the temperature of the land. The coastal air is kept mild and sweet, never too hot and never too cold, because the ocean acts as a great, stabilizing lung. The water here is a deep, nourishing grain filled with kelp forests that sway in the underwater breeze. These long, amber fronds move back and forth in a hypnotic rhythm, casting soft shadows on the sandy floor below. It is a world of filtered light and gentle swaying, where the only sound is the low, rhythmic thrum of the surf hitting the shore far above. The current is a shepherd, guiding the nutrients and the warmth to where they are needed most, maintaining a delicate balance that has existed since the beginning of time. In the southern hemisphere, the mirror image of this dance takes place. The South Pacific gyre moves in a counterclockwise circle, a vast and lonely spiral in the most remote part of the earth. Here, the water is exceptionally clear, a crystalline blue that seems to hold the light of the stars even during the day. This is the heart of the great wilderness, where the currents move through reaches of ocean that rarely see a ship or a bird. The movement here is even more deliberate, a majestic rotation that feels as though the Earth itself is breathing in and out. The Southern Ocean, down at the very bottom of the world, feeds into this system with water that is cold and crisp, having traveled from the icy shelves of the Antarctic. This water is dense and rich, carrying the stillness of the ice into the warmer reaches of the north. There is a profound sense of order in these movements. The ocean does not rush. It flows with a certainty that is deeply comforting. It reminds us that there are systems in place that are far larger than our daily concerns. Cycles that have been turning for millions of years and will continue to turn for millions more. The great conveyor belt of the ocean moves water from the surface to the depths and back again. A process that takes 1,000 years to complete a single circuit. A drop of water that sinks near the poles today might not see the sunlight of the tropics for centuries. It travels in the dark, silent corridors of the abyss, moving through the immense pressure and the absolute calm of the deep, until it is eventually drawn upward by the warmth of the sun once more. This upward movement, known as upwelling, is a moment of quiet renewal. Along the coast of South America, the cold Humboldt current pulls the deep, nutrient-rich water to the surface. It is a gift from the depths, a cool wellspring that feeds the entire ecosystem. The air here is sharp and refreshing, filled with the energy of the rising tide. The birds that wheel above the waves do so with a steady, gliding motion mirroring the flow of the water below. There is a sense of abundance that is not frantic, but settled, a natural overflowing of the earth's generosity. The water is a tapestry of blues and grays, shifting and blending as the light of the afternoon sun begins to soften into the amber of evening. As we watch these currents, we begin to understand that the Pacific is the great regulator of our world's temperament. It stores the heat of the sun and releases it slowly, like a large hearth that stays warm long after the fire has dimmed. It carries the warmth of the equator to the shivering islands of the north, and brings the coolness of the poles to the sweltering coasts of the tropics. It is a system of sharing, a global exchange that happens without a sound. The climate of the entire planet is authored by these slow-moving rivers of salt water. The rains that fall on distant mountains, the breezes that stir the leaves of inland forests, the soft snow that blankets the high plateaus. All of it begins here, in the rhythmic pulse of the Pacific currents. Imagine the smell of the air as it passes over these different waters. Near the equator, it is heavy with moisture and the scent of blooming jasmine from unseen islands. As it moves north, it becomes crisp and ozonic, carrying the sharp, clean scent of breaking waves and cold spray. In the center of the Great Gyres, where the water is still and the winds are light, the air is pure and neutral, a blank slate that allows the mind to rest. There is no noise here, only the sound of the water sliding against itself, a liquid friction that is more felt than heard. It is a low-frequency hum, the vibration of the planet as it turns through the velvet void of space. The currents also carry the wanderers of the sea. Sea turtles with their ancient and patient eyes hatch on sandy beaches and surrender themselves to the flow. They do not struggle against the water. They let the current take them, drifting for thousands of miles in a state of quiet trust. They rest in the mats of floating seaweed, cradled by the same warmth that moves the weather. In this world, to move is to be still, and to be still is to move. There is no distinction between the traveler and the path. The turtle becomes part of the current, a small living spark in the great blue engine of the world. They sleep as they move, their flippers occasionally twitching in a dream of the deep, while the water carries them safely toward their destination. As the sun begins to set over the vast horizon, the colors of the water deepen. The bright turquoise of the shallows turns to a rich cobalt, and then to a shadowy violet. The currents continue their work in the gathering dark. They do not need the light to find their way. They are guided by the gravity of the moon and the spin of the earth, forces that are constant and unwavering. The surface of the ocean becomes a mirror for the stars, a shimmering field of light that undulates with the slow, heavy swell. The movement of the water is a lullaby, a repetitive and soothing cadence that speaks of permanence and peace. We can feel the weight of the water, the immense pressure of its calm. It is a supportive weight, a liquid cushion that holds everything in its place. The currents are like the slow, deep breaths of a person in a profound sleep. Each inhalation draws the cold water from the depths. Each exhalation sends the warm water across the surface. There is no tension in this movement, only a graceful release. The ocean does not hold onto anything. It lets the energy pass through it, shifting and changing form, but always remaining essentially the same. It is a lesson in letting go, in trusting the flow of the world to carry us where we need to be. In the quiet of the night, the North Pacific gyre continues its slow, clockwise turn. The water moves past the Hawaiian archipelago, where the volcanic peaks rise out of the sea like sleeping giants. The waves lap gently against the black sand beaches, a soft, shushing sound that echoes in the stillness. The scent of wood smoke and tropical flowers drifts from the shore, mingling with the salt air. The current doesn't stop, but it feels as though it lingers here for a moment, savoring the warmth of the land before continuing its long journey back toward the cold. Everything is slowing down now, the transitions becoming even more seamless, the boundaries between the water and the air beginning to blur. The great rivers of the sea are the quiet architects of our comfort. They ensure that the world remains a place of soft edges and moderate temperatures. They are the reason the coastal fog feels like a silken scarf, and the reason the tropical breeze feels like a gentle hand on the shoulder. As we drift along with these currents, we find that our own thoughts begin to mirror their slow, steady pace. The urgency of the day fades away, replaced by the vast, unhurried perspective of the ocean. We are small, but we are part of this magnificent, moving whole. We are carried by the same forces that move the clouds and the tides, a gentle insistence that leads us toward a state of total rest. The water is cooler now as we move toward the edges of the system, where the current begins to dip back down into the darker layers of the sea. The light is fading, leaving only the softest glow on the underside of the waves. The rhythm of the ocean is the only thing that remains, a steady pulsing beat that grows quieter and more rhythmic with every passing moment. The currents are settling into their nighttime paths, moving with a heavy, liquid grace through the shadows. The The world is wrapping itself in the blue mantle of the deep, preparing for a long and undisturbed slumber. As the movement of the water becomes almost imperceptible, we find ourselves at the threshold of a different kind of space. The currents have brought us to a place of perfect equilibrium, where the warmth and the cold meet and find peace. The air is still, the water is smooth, and the great engine of the climate hums at a frequency that is almost silent. It is a place of transition, where the liquid world of the currents begins to give way to the solid, unmoving foundations of the earth beneath. We are moving away from the surface now, drifting down toward the quiet places where the mountains of the sea floor begin their long, slow climb toward the light. The light from above fades away in a long, slow exhale of color, turning from the bright turquoise of the shallows to a deep, resonant indigo, and finally to a velvet blue that feels as heavy and soft as a thick wool blanket pulled up to the chin. We are moving away from the sun now, descending into the vast, silent cathedrals of the deep Pacific, where the water is still and the passage of time seems to stretch out like a long, golden afternoon. Here, the weight of the ocean is not a burden but a steady, rhythmic embrace, a constant presence that holds everything in a quiet, unmoving cradle as we sink further. The last flickers of the surface world disappear, leaving behind the memory of waves and wind, replaced by a profound and ancient stillness that has remained unchanged for millions of years. Imagine the silence here, a silence so deep it feels like a physical texture, like the softest silk brushing against the skin. There are no sounds of engines, no cries of gulls, no rustle of leaves. There is only the slow, rhythmic pulse of the earth itself, a heartbeat felt rather than heard. The water is cool and constant, a steady temperature that never wavers, wrapping the world in a perpetual, peaceful twilight. In this darkness, the eyes begin to adjust, finding beauty in the subtle gradients of shadow and the occasional, soft glow of life that makes its own light, drifting like tiny, glowing embers through a forest at night. We are approaching the great trenches, the long, curving furrows in the earth's crust where the very floor of the ocean begins to dip and bow. These are not jagged canyons or frightening abysses, but gentle slopes of fine, silken dust settling over eons like snow falling on a quiet meadow. The sediment here is a history of the world above, composed of tiny fragments of shell and ancient stardust, ground down by time into a powder so soft it would feel like flour between the fingers. It covers the landscape in a seamless, pale mantle, smoothing out the edges of the rocks and filling the hollows until the world looks like a range of rolling hills covered in a thick, permanent mist. As we glide over the edge of the Mariana, the deepest of these long, quiet valleys, the scale of the Pacific becomes truly apparent. This is a place of immense proportions, yet it feels intimate, like a secret garden hidden away from the rest of the world. The walls of the trench slope downward at a leisurely angle, draped in that same silver-gray silt, creating a landscape of soft curves and muted tones. There is a sense of immense age here, a feeling that the rocks beneath us have been resting in this exact spot since the world was very young, watching the oceans grow and the continents shift with the patient indifference of a mountain. In the stillness of the trench, life moves with a deliberate, unhurried grace. There are small, translucent creatures that drift through the water like scraps of lace. Their bodies so delicate they seem made of nothing more than moonlight and memory. They do not struggle against currents, for there are no currents here. They simply exist, suspended in the cool dark, pulsing with a slow and steady rhythm that matches the turning of the stars far above. Some carry tiny, bioluminescent lanterns that cast a soft, amber glow onto the seafloor, illuminating a few inches of the pale dust before fading back into the blue. It is a world of small, quiet wonders where a single flicker of light is a masterpiece of design. On the floor of the trench, the pressure of the water above creates a sense of profound solidity. Everything is held firmly in place, tucked into the earth's deep pockets. You might imagine the sensation of being very small and very safe, tucked into a soft chair by a fire that never goes out, while a gentle rain taps rhythmically against a window pane. The water here is dense and supportive, carrying the weight of the world so that everything within it can be weightless. Even the smallest grains of sand seem to float with a dreamy, slow motion quality, taking hours to settle back into the velvet carpet of the floor if disturbed by a passing fin. The geology of this place is a story of slow, majestic movement, a dance that takes millions of years to complete a single step. The great plates of the Earth's crust are sliding beneath one another here. But it is a process so gradual it is indistinguishable from stillness. It is the movement of a glacier, the growth of a forest, the steady breath of a sleeping giant. As one plate bows down to pass beneath another, it creates these long, elegant troughs, reaching down toward the warm heart of the planet. There is no friction here that we can feel, only the sense of a grand, orderly design unfolding at a pace that makes a human lifetime seem like a single heartbeat. Think of the smell of the deep ocean. If one could breathe it in, it would be the scent of cold stone and ancient salt, a clean metallic crispness like the air at the top of a snow-covered peak, mixed with the faint, earthy aroma of damp clay. It is the smell of the very beginning of things, a scent that has been trapped in the dark for an eternity, preserved by the cold and the quiet. It is a refreshing, peaceful scent that clears the mind and settles the spirit, inviting a deep, restorative sleep. In the valleys of the trench, there are fields of sea lilies, delicate animals that look like flowers. Rooted in the silt by long, slender stalks, they sway with a motion so slight it is almost invisible, their feathery arms outstretched to catch the tiny particles of nourishment that drift down from the sunlit world miles above. This marine snow, as it is called, is a constant, gentle rain of organic matter, falling through the water column like cherry blossoms in a spring breeze. It is the bridge between the world of light and the world of shadow, a gift from the surface that sustains the quiet life of the deep. We follow this trail of falling snow further down, into the very heart of the trench. The water here is even stiller, if such a thing is possible, a mirror of the void between the stars. The shapes of the landscape are rounded and soft, like pillows stacked in a darkened room. There are mounds of basalt, cooled long ago into smooth, bulbous forms that resemble the backs of great, sleeping whales. Everything is coated in the silver dust, a uniform texture that makes the world feel cohesive and whole. There are no sharp edges here. No jarring transitions, only the continuous, flowing line of the Earth's deepest curves. Occasionally, a small fish will pass by. Its scales a pale, ghostly white. Its eyes large and dark to catch the faintest hint of a glow. It moves with a flick of its tail that is more of a suggestion than a struggle, gliding through the water as if it were dreaming of flight. These creatures are the keepers of the trench, the silent witnesses to a part of our world that remains largely untouched and unseen. They live in a state of perpetual calm, their lives governed by the slow cycles of the deep, far removed from the storms and the seasons of the atmosphere. The temperature here is a constant, cool embrace, never rising or falling by even a fraction of a degree. It is the temperature of a cellar where the finest wines are kept, or the cool side of a pillow on a warm night. This constancy is a comfort, a promise that nothing will change, that the peace of the trench is an eternal and reliable thing. You can line into this cold, letting it numb the worries of the day, feeling the way it slows the pulse and quiets the thoughts until they are as still as the water around us. As we move along the floor of the trench, we see the patterns left by the slow movement of the water. There are ripples in the silt, delicate and precise, like the lines in a Zen garden raked by a careful hand. They trace the path of ancient, wandering currents that move through the deep like ghosts, carrying the breath of the polar seas into the tropical depths. These currents are slow and majestic, taking centuries to travel from one end of the ocean to the other. A grand circulation that keeps the planet's heart beating in a steady, even rhythm. The trench is a place of profound belonging. Every grain of sand, every drop of water, every tiny glowing creature is exactly where it is meant to be. There is no haste here, no striving, only the simple act of being. It is a lesson in patience, taught by the rocks and the water over the course of eons. To be here is to be part of something vast and ancient, a story that began before the first trees grew and will continue long after the last fires have gone out. It is a perspective that makes the small stresses of life fade away, replaced by a sense of awe and a deep, settling peace. Imagine the sound of a distant bell, muffled by miles of water, its tone low and resonant, vibrating through the very marrow of your bones. That is the feeling of the trench, a low-frequency hum of existence that vibrates at the frequency of rest. It is a sound that pulls you down into the softest parts of yourself, where the mind can finally let go of its anchors and drift. The water is a thick, protective layer between you and the busy world, a shield that filters out the noise and the light until only the essence of the earth remains. We find a small hollow in the side of a ridge, a place where the silt has gathered in a deep, inviting pool. It is a perfect spot to rest, to watch the marine snow fall in its endless, rhythmic dance. The light from the bioluminescent creatures above is like a canopy of stars, distant and twinkling, casting a soft, blue-gray light over the landscape. The walls of the hollow are smooth and cool, offering a sense of enclosure and safety, like a nest hidden in the tall grass of a summer field. Here, the passage of time is measured not by hours or minutes, but by the slow accumulation of dust, 1,000 years might pass as a single inch of silt settles onto the floor, a quiet record of the passing ages. It is a scale of time that invites us to let go of our urgency, to breathe in the slow, cool air of the deep and find contentment in the present moment. There is nowhere else to be, nothing else to do but to exist in this perfect, silent cradle of the earth. The water seems to grow even heavier now, but it is a weight of comfort, like a heavy quilt on a winter's night. It presses gently against the skin, grounding us, holding us steady as the world turns far above. The shadows in the trench are deep and soft, like the folds of a velvet curtain, inviting us to close our eyes and trust in the stillness. The tiny flickers of light in the distance are growing dimmer, one by one as the creatures of the deep settle into their own long, slow rhythms. We are at the very bottom of the world, in the quietest room of the great house of the Pacific. The air is still, the water is cool, and the earth is firm beneath us. The great trenches are not scars on the planet, but gentle folds, places where the earth can rest and renew itself in the dark. They are the deep breaths of the world, the long pauses between the notes of a grand, oceanic symphony. As we prepare to leave this place, we carry the stillness with us, a quiet ember burning in the center of our being. The memory of the silver dust, the translucent lace of the deep sea life, and the vast supportive weight of the water remains, a steadying influence as we begin our slow, leisurely climb back toward the slopes of the undersea mountains. The transition is seamless, a gradual shift from the deepest dark to the first, faint hints of a lighter blue, as gentle as the turning of a page in a well-loved book. The floor of the trench fades behind us, a soft gray memory lost in the indigo depths, while ahead the first rises of the mid-ocean ridges begin to appear, their peaks still far away in the twilight. We move upward with the ease of a bubble rising through a glass of water, drifting toward the places where the earth begins to reach back up toward the sky, toward the high plateaus and the hidden valleys where the story of the Pacific continues its long, slow journey through the quiet reaches of the world. The horizon is not a line but a soft, blurred meeting of two different shades of blue, a place where the deep indigo of the water rises up to touch the pale, milky azure of the lower sky. Out here in the vast center of the Pacific, the world feels as though it has been smoothed out by a giant, invisible hand, leaving nothing but the rhythmic rise and fall of the swells to mark the passage of time. There is no land for thousands of miles in any direction, no trees to rustle in the wind, and no stones to hold the heat of the sun. There is only the water, a living, breathing expanse that stretches out toward every corner of the compass, rolling in long, low undulations that seem to carry the heartbeat of the planet itself. When you are suspended in the middle of this emptiness, the air smells of nothing but salt and clarity, a scent so clean it feels as though it could wash away every thought of the busy, cluttered world left behind on the shores. The silence is not an absence of sound, but a presence of its own, a deep and resonant quiet composed of the gentle hiss of foam against the hull and the soft, rhythmic creak of wood or metal as the vessel tilts ever so slightly in the cradle of the waves. Imagine the feeling of being very small in a space that is very large. not in a way that feels lonely, but in a way that feels safe, like a single poppy seed resting in a great bowl of velvet. The ship moves forward, but to the eyes of those on board, it can feel as though they are standing perfectly still while the ocean simply flows beneath them. A conveyor belt of sapphire and silver that never ends. During the day, the sun climbs a sky so wide it defies measurement, casting a white-hot glow that turns the surface of the water into a field of dancing diamonds. Each ripple catches the light, flickering for a fraction of a second before vanishing back into the deep. A constant, shimmering motion that is hypnotic to watch. If you lean over the rail and look down, you can see the light penetrating deep into the water, turning the surface layers into a translucent turquoise that gradually fades into a darker, richer navy, and then finally into a blackness so soft and profound it feels like a physical weight. It is a world of layers, and out here, far from the silt of rivers and the dust of cities, the water is so clear that a white plate dropped overboard would be visible for a very long time, fluttering down like a falling leaf until it finally dissolves into the blue. Life on the open ocean during these long, empty weeks settles into a tempo that matches the slow breathing of the sea. The crew members find themselves moving with a deliberate, unhurried grace, their bodies instinctively adjusting to the tilt of the deck before they even realize the ship has moved. The tasks of the day are simple and repetitive, providing a comforting structure to the hours. There is the slow, rhythmic scrubbing of the decks, the sound of the bristles against the wet wood creating a white noise that blends with the wind. There is the checking of the ropes, the feeling of the rough hemp fibers against the palms of the hands, and the steady, quiet work of the cook in the galley, where the smell of baking bread or simmering stew drifts out across the water, a warm and earthy reminder of the land. These smells are precious out here. They are anchors of domesticity in a wilderness of salt. The aroma of a simple cup of tea, with its faint hint of dried leaves and steam, becomes a sensory event, a small, warm sun held between two hands as the cool breeze of the afternoon begins to pick up. As the sun begins its long, slow descent toward the west, the colors of the world undergo a transformation that is both subtle and breathtaking. The white light of midday softens into a buttery yellow, then a rich, glowing orange, and finally a dusty rose that stains the undersides of the occasional stray cloud. The shadow of the ship grows long across the water, a dark finger pointing toward the night. This is the hour of the great transition, when the heat of the day radiates back into space and the air takes on a crisp, refreshing quality. The water loses its sparkle and becomes a mirror of hammered silver, reflecting the fading glow of the sky with such perfect clarity that it becomes difficult to tell where the ocean ends and the heavens begin. In this soft, dimming light, the vastness of the Pacific feels intimate, as if the world has tucked itself in for the evening, wrapping the ship in a blanket of twilight. When the stars finally emerge, they do not appear all at once, but one by one, beginning with the brightest lanterns of the planets and followed by the faint, shimmering dust of the Milky Way. Out here, without the glow of a single lamp from the shore to compete with them, the stars are so bright they cast shadows on the deck. They are not distant points of light, but thick, textured clusters that seem to hang low over the masts. Close enough to touch, the sailors of the past would look up at this celestial map and see a familiar landscape, a guide that spoke to them in a language of angles and constellations. They knew the names of the stars like the names of old friends, using the steady glow of the North Star or the distinctive cross of the South to find their way across the featureless dark. The night sky is a silent companion, a vast and ancient clock that marks the passage of the weeks with the slow rotation of the spheres. Underneath the ship, in the immense darkness of the deep, a different kind of life continues its own quiet journey. Thousands of feet below the keel, where the pressure is great and the light of the sun never reaches. The water is still and cold, a silent kingdom of slow-moving currents. Here, the creatures of the deep move with a languid efficiency, their bodies designed for a world without boundaries. Some of them carry their own light, tiny bioluminescent sparks that flicker like fireflies in the dark, creating a galaxy beneath the waves that mirrors the one above. Occasionally, a pod of dolphins might find the ship, their sleek gray bodies breaking the surface in a series of perfect, silent arcs. They ride the pressure wave at the bow, effortlessly keeping pace with the vessel, their dark eyes reflecting the starlight. Their presence is a brief, joyful connection, a reminder that even in the most remote reaches of the ocean, one is never truly alone. The passage of weeks in the open ocean does something to the human perception of time. The days begin to blur together into a single, continuous experience of light and water. The urgency of the world beyond the horizon fades away, replaced by a deep, meditative calm. There is no news here, no sudden changes, only the weather and the stars. A rain squall might appear on the horizon, a gray curtain of water trailing from a low-hanging cloud, and the ship will sail through it for a few minutes, the sound of the droplets hissing against the sea like 1,000 tiny whispers. Then, as quickly as it arrived, the rain is gone, leaving the air smelling of ozone and the decks glistening with fresh water. These are the only events in a landscape of beautiful monotony, and they are greeted with a quiet appreciation, a recognition of the simple textures of the natural world. In the middle of the night, when most of the crew is asleep in their swaying hammocks, the ship becomes a sanctuary of peace. The only sound is the water rushing past the hull, a deep hollow gurgle that acts as a lullaby for those below. The wood of the ship speaks in a soft language of groans and sighs, the sound of seasoned timber settling into the movement of the swell. It is a comforting sound, the sound of a well-built home doing its job, holding the elements at bay while its inhabitants rest. The air in the cabins is cool and carries the faint scent of old wood, beeswax, and the salt that permeates everything. In this environment, sleep is deep and restorative, a sinking down into the dark that mimics the descent of a stone into the depths of the sea. The Pacific is so large that one can sail for 20 days and see nothing but the curvature of the earth. This vastness is not a void, but a vessel for the imagination. In the long hours of the afternoon, when the sun is high and the wind is steady, a person can sit on the deck and watch the patterns of the foam as it trails away from the stern. The wake is a temporary path, a white road that stretches back toward the past before being slowly reclaimed by the blue. It is a visual representation of the journey, a reminder that every mile covered is a mile of quiet contemplation. The mind begins to wander, drifting like the seaweed that occasionally floats past, small islands of golden brown kelp that provide a home for tiny crabs and fish. These little ecosystems are the only solid things in a world of liquid. Miniature forests navigating the great plains of the ocean. As the weeks progress, the character of the water itself seems to change. In the trade wind belts, the sea is a bright, energetic blue topped with white caps that look like tufts of wool. The wind is a constant, friendly pressure filling the sails and singing in the rigging with a low, flute-like tone, but as the ship moves into the doldrums, the wind can die away entirely, leaving the ocean as flat and polished as a sheet of glass. In these moments of total calm, the Pacific becomes a giant mirror, reflecting the clouds with such intensity that the ship seems to be floating in the sky. The heat becomes a heavy, palpable thing, and the only movement is the slow, oily swell that rolls beneath the surface, a reminder that the ocean never truly sleeps. The crew waits with a quiet patience, knowing that the air will eventually stir again. And in the meantime, they find beauty in the stillness, in the way a single bubble can drift for minutes across the unruffled surface. Logistics out here are a matter of careful stewardship and a respect for the limits of the vessel. The fresh water is rationed with a gentle hand, every drop appreciated for its coolness and its life-giving clarity. The stores of food are managed so that the meals remain a highlight of the day, a time for the crew to gather and share quiet conversation. They talk of the things they have seen, the way the moon looked 3 nights ago, or the particular shade of green in the crest of a wave. There is no need for loud voices or hurried movements. The ocean demands a certain level of decorum, a quietness of spirit that matches its own vast dignity. To live on the open sea for weeks at a time is to learn the art of being present, of finding satisfaction in the curve of a sail or the taste of a piece of dried fruit. The nights grow cooler as the ship moves further into the reaches of the southern or northern latitudes, and the crew brings out heavier blankets, their textures rough and warm against the skin. The stars change their positions, new constellations rising up from the horizon to greet the travelers. The Southern Cross appears, a tilted diamond of light that serves as a beacon for those heading into the great empty spaces of the lower hemisphere. The air begins to carry a hint of something different. Not the smell of land, but the smell of the deep cold. A crispness that speaks of the vast ice fields far to the south. The water becomes a darker, more somber shade of blue, and the swells grow longer and more powerful, moving with a majestic weight that makes the ship feel like a leaf on the back of a grate. Slow beast. Even in the most remote parts of the Pacific, there is a sense of connection to the history of the Earth. This water has been here for eons, shifting and turning, absorbing the heat of the sun and the cold of the moon. It is the great regulator, the blue heart of the world that keeps the rhythm of the seasons. To cross it slowly is to pay homage to its scale, to acknowledge that there are still places on this planet that cannot be hurried. The empty weeks are not lost time. They are a gift of space, a chance to breathe in sync with the tides and to let the clutter of the mind settle like silt to the bottom of the bay. The ship is a tiny world of its own, a bubble of warmth and light moving through the infinite, carrying its passengers toward a destination that is still a whisper on the wind. As the chapter of the open ocean begins to draw to a close, the mood on board shifts from the meditative to a quiet anticipation. It is not a hurried feeling, but a subtle change in the atmosphere, like the way the air feels just before a summer rain. The birds begin to appear again. First, a single albatross, circling the masts with wings that never seem to flap, its white body standing out against the gray-blue sky. Then a few smaller petrels, darting over the waves with a frantic, busy energy. These are the messengers, the first signs that the great emptiness is beginning to yield. The water changes color again, losing its deep, transparent indigo and taking on a hint of green, a sign that the bottom is rising up from the abyss to meet the light. The sailors watch the horizon with a renewed interest, their eyes searching for the first smudge of gray that might be a mountain or a distant island. But for now, the ocean remains the dominant force, a vast and beautiful expanse that has shared its secrets of silence and scale. The ship continues its steady, rhythmic pace, the bow cutting through the water with a sound like tearing silk. The sun begins to set once more, casting a final, golden glow over the endless hills of water, and the crew prepares for another night under the stars. The world is large and the journey is long, and there is a profound peace in the knowledge that for tonight, there is nothing to do but listen to the wind and watch the stars begin their slow, familiar dance. The transition from the deep, open sea to the fringes of the world's archipelagos is a gradual softening of the horizon, a slow reintroduction to the textures of the earth. The air becomes slightly heavier, carrying a faint, almost imperceptible sweetness that hints at growing things, at damp earth and blooming flowers. It is a scent that travels for hundreds of miles over the water, a gentle greeting from the land that lies somewhere just beyond the curve of the world. The swells, which have been long and unobstructed for weeks, begin to change their shape as they feel the influence of distant reefs and underwater ridges. They become shorter, more rhythmic, like a pulse that is quickening as it nears its destination. On the ship, the lanterns are lit as the evening deepens, their warm yellow light spilling across the deck and reflecting in the polished brass of the instruments. The crew moves about their final duties of the day with a quiet efficiency, their voices low and calm. There is a sense of accomplishment in having crossed the great void, a shared understanding of the beauty that lies in the middle of nowhere. They have seen the world at its most basic, just light, water, and air, and they carry that clarity with them as they prepare for the sights and sounds of the shore. The ocean has been a generous host, providing a space for reflection and a reminder of the slow, steady pace of the natural world. As the stars reach their peak and the Milky Way stretches like a bridge across the heavens, the ship seems to settle even deeper into the water, finding its groove in the midnight swell. The sounds of the sea become a soft, continuous hum, a background noise that fades into the subconscious. The vastness of the Pacific is no longer a daunting distance to be conquered, but a familiar landscape that. The vastness of the Pacific is no longer a daunting distance to be conquered, but a familiar landscape that breathes with the slow, rhythmic cadence of the planet itself. Here in the open reaches where the water turns a deep, velvety indigo, the air begins to carry a different kind of weight, a softness that feels like damp silk against the skin. We are moving now into the quiet cradle of the weather, where the great winds of the world are born from nothing more than sunlight and the rising of warm, moist air. It is a place of immense patience, where a cloud might spend an entire afternoon deciding whether to become a shadow or a rain shower, drifting lazily across a sky so wide that the horizon seems to curve away into infinity. The ocean here is a mirror for the heavens, reflecting the slow dance of white towers that build themselves out of the mist, growing taller and heavier as they soak up the warmth of the tropical sun. These are the storms that build for 1,000 miles, not with the sharp violence of a summer gale on land, but with a steady, deliberate gathering of energy that feels as natural as the turning of the tide. As we glide across this liquid prairie, the sound of the water against the hull becomes a low, melodic hum, a constant companion that lulls the mind into a state of peaceful observation. You might notice how the light changes as the afternoon matures, turning from a brilliant, sparkling silver into a rich, honeyed gold that seems to dissolve into the waves. The clouds on the far horizon are no longer mere wisps, but great, soft cathedrals of vapor, their bases shaded in a gentle slate gray while their peaks catch the last remnants of the high sun. There is no hurry in their movement, only a slow, drifting grace as they follow the invisible currents of the upper atmosphere. In this part of the world, the weather is not something that happens to the ocean, but something that grows out of it. A conversation between the salt water and the warm air that has been going on for millions of years. It is a cycle of rising and falling, of gathering and releasing, a heartbeat that sustains the life of the entire globe. Imagine the smell of the air as the first distant rain begins to fall, miles away from where we sit. It is a scent that is impossible to find anywhere else. A mixture of pure, distilled water and the faint, sweet tang of the open sea. It is the smell of cleanliness, of the world being washed in a gentle, unending cycle. The rain does not fall in a rush here. It descends in long, shimmering curtains that move slowly across the face of the deep. When a shower passes over the water, the sound is like 1,000 tiny fingers tapping lightly on a drum, a soft, percussive hiss that blends into the murmur of the swells. The surface of the ocean becomes textured, transformed from a smooth sheet of glass into a shimmering tapestry of concentric circles, each one expanding and fading into the next. It is a quiet transformation, a moment of intimacy between the sky and the sea that leaves the air feeling cool and refreshed, like a long, deep breath taken after a day of warmth. The winds that drive these systems are the trade winds, those reliable, steady breaths of the earth that have guided travelers for centuries. They are not gusty or unpredictable, but flow with a consistency that feels like a physical presence, a gentle hand pushing steadily against the sails or the skin. To feel the trade winds is to feel the pulse of the planet's rotation, a movement so vast and certain that it provides a sense of profound security. They carry with them the faint traces of distant places, the memory of islands far over the curve of the earth, and the cooling influence of the deep currents that move beneath the surface. There is a profound comfort in this predictability, a knowledge that the wind will be there tomorrow, and the day after, blowing with the same quiet determination that has shaped the history of this ocean. It is a force that does not demand attention, but rather invites one to lean into it, to trust in its steady, rhythmic flow. As the sun begins its slow descent toward the western rim, the architecture of the clouds becomes even more magnificent. They stretch out in long, horizontal bands layered like the pages of an ancient book, each one catching a different hue of the fading light. There are soft mauves and dusty roses, deep violets and the palest of ambers, all bleeding together into a palette that is both vibrant and remarkably soothing. The shadows between the waves grow longer, filling the troughs with a cool, dark blue that contrasts with the golden crests. This is the time when the ocean seems to expand even further, the lack of a sharp horizon line making it feel as though we are floating in a vast, luminous sphere of color and light. The transitions are so gradual that you cannot quite tell when one color ends and another begins. A seamless progression that mirrors the slow, steady build of the weather systems themselves. Deep within these gathering storms, there is a core of stillness, a quiet center where the air is heavy and expectant. It is not a silence of emptiness, but a silence of preparation, the way a forest feels before a gentle snowfall. The energy being gathered here is immense, yet it is expressed through the most delicate of means. A slight increase in the humidity, a subtle shift in the direction of the swell, the way the light filters through the thickening vapor in long, slanting beams known as crepuscular rays. These are the signs of a storm building for 1,000 miles, a process that takes days and weeks to reach its fullness. There is no urgency in this development, no rush to reach a conclusion. The Pacific has all the time in the world, and it uses that time to craft its weather with a precision and a beauty that is humbling to behold. The life that inhabits this realm is well accustomed to these slow cycles of change. High above, the albatross glides on motionless wings, using the very air currents we are observing to travel thousands of miles without a single flap. These birds are masters of the wind, finding the invisible paths through the sky with an intuition that seems almost magical. They move with the weather, riding the edges of the storms, finding the places where the air rises and falls in predictable patterns. To watch an albatross is to see the wind made visible, a graceful looping dance that follows the contours of the atmosphere. They are silent companions in this vast space, their presence a reminder that even in the middle of the greatest ocean on Earth, there is a sense of home and belonging. They rest on the water when the winds are light, bobbing like corks on the gentle swell, and rise again when the breeze picks up, effortlessly reclaiming their place in the sky. Beneath the surface, the great whales also feel the shift in the weather. They move through the deep with a slow, powerful grace, their songs traveling for hundreds of miles through the dense, cool water. These songs are the soundtrack of the deep Pacific, a series of low, resonant moans and clicks that vibrate through the very hull of a ship. They are communicating across distances that are hard for the human mind to grasp, sharing information about the currents, the temperature, and perhaps even the coming storms. The ocean is a medium of sound, and the whales are its most profound composers, their music blending with the hum of the wind and the hiss of the rain to create a symphony of the natural world. In the quiet of the evening, if you listen closely, you can almost imagine you feel the resonance of their voices rising up through the water. a deep grounding vibration that speaks of ancient things and long, slow journeys. As night begins to fall, the clouds lose their vibrant colors and become dark silhouettes against a sky that is turning a deep, velvety black. The stars begin to appear, not one by one, but in great, shimmering clusters that seem to hang just out of reach. In the middle of the Pacific, away from the lights of any shore, the stars are so bright and so numerous that they provide a light of their own, casting a faint, silvery glow across the surface of the water. The Milky Way stretches across the zenith like a river of diamonds, a luminous path that mirrors the tracks of the ships and the migration routes of the birds. The storms that were building during the day are now distant shadows, their presence marked only by the occasional flicker of silent lightning deep within their hearts. This lightning is not the sharp, jagged bolt of a land storm, but a soft internal glow, like a lamp being turned on and off behind a thick curtain. It is a gentle reminder of the power contained within the clouds, a quiet pulse of energy that illuminates the dark for the briefest of moments. The air cools as the darkness deepens, and the trade winds take on a crisp, refreshing quality. The sound of the ocean changes slightly at night, the splashes of the waves sounding clearer and more distinct in the stillness. There is a sense of immense privacy in this darkness, a feeling of being the only witness to a vast and beautiful secret. The world has shrunk down to the small circle of light around us, while the rest of the Pacific stretches out in every direction, a dark and dreaming expanse. The rhythm of the swell becomes even more pronounced, a slow, rocking motion that feels like being cradled in a giant, liquid hand. It is a movement that encourages sleep, a steady, unchanging cadence that clears the mind of all its busy thoughts and replaces them with the simple, physical sensation of being carried. In this environment, the concept of time begins to dissolve. There are no clocks here, only the rising and setting of the sun, the phases of the moon, and the slow progression of the weather. A storm that takes a week to build and another week to pass is simply a part of the natural order, a slow breath taken by the ocean. This lack of urgency is contagious, seeping into the bones and calming the spirit. We learn to wait, to observe, and to appreciate the subtle shifts in the world around us. We notice the way the phosphorus in the water glows in the wake of our movement, a trail of tiny, cold fires that sparkle and fade in the dark. We notice the way the moon reflects in the troughs of the waves, creating a path of silver that seems to lead straight to the edge of the world. These are small things, yet in the vastness of the Pacific, they become everything, anchoring us to the present moment with a gentle, insistent grace. As the hours of the night pass, the distant storms continue their slow, deliberate work. They are moving across the face of the deep, carrying the moisture and the warmth of the tropics to other parts of the world. They are the great balancers of the Earth's climate, ensuring that the heat of the equator is shared with the cooler regions to the north and south. This is a work of immense scale, yet it is carried out with a quietness that is profoundly peaceful. There is no conflict in this process, only a steady, inevitable flow from one state to another. The storm is not an enemy to be feared, but a necessary part of the cycle, a provider of life-giving rain and a driver of the great currents. To understand the Pacific is to understand this balance, to see the beauty in the gathering clouds and the wisdom in the steady winds. The ocean beneath us remains constant, a deep and enduring presence that supports all this activity without effort. It is the foundation upon which the weather is built, a reservoir of energy and a cradle of life. The water is never truly still, yet it possesses a quality of stillness that is deeper than any calm. It is the stillness of something so large that its movements are beyond our immediate perception. A slow, tectonic shifting of masses that happens over centuries. When we look out over the water at night, we are looking at the memory of the world, a place that has remained largely unchanged while the continents have shifted and the mountains have risen and fallen. This permanence is a comfort, a reminder that there are things in this world that are steady and sure, things that do not change with the passing whims of history. As we approach the end of this part of our journey, the clouds on the horizon begin to thin, revealing the first faint light of the coming dawn. It is a very slow transition, a gradual softening of the darkness into a deep, charcoal gray, then a bruised purple, and finally a pale, watery blue. The stars fade one by one, retreating into the depths of the sky as the sun prepares to make its appearance once more. The air is at its coolest now, the dew settling on every surface with a damp, fresh touch. The distant storms have moved on, leaving behind a sky that is clear and expectant, ready for the cycle to begin all over again. The ocean is calm, the swells long and low, moving with a grace that seems to have been refined by the night. The transition from the world of weather and storms into the next phase of our exploration is as gentle as the coming of the light. We move from the high atmosphere and the open reaches of the deep sea toward the places where the water meets the land, where the energy of the 1,000-mile storms finally finds a shore to rest upon. But for now, we remain in this middle space, this quiet cathedral of air and water, where the only task is to breathe and to be carried. The rhythm of the ocean is our rhythm, and its peace is our peace. The world is vast and we are small, yet in this vastness there is a profound sense of safety and belonging. The light continues to grow, casting long, soft shadows across the water, and the first birds of the morning begin to appear, their white wings catching the early rays. The trade winds are picking up again, a steady, familiar presence that promises another day of smooth and certain travel. The storms of yesterday are gone, and the storms of tomorrow are still just a whisper on the far horizon, leaving us in this perfect, suspended moment of clarity and calm. We are moving toward the islands now, those small green jewels scattered across the indigo expanse. But they are still a long way off, hidden behind the curve of the earth. For now, there is only the sea, the sky, and the slow, rhythmic breathing of the Pacific, a sound that settles deep into the spirit and brings with it a sense of final, quiet rest in this vast and open space. The mind finds its own horizon, a place where the thoughts can drift as freely as the clouds, and the heart can beat in time with the steady, unhurried pulse of the great ocean. The light is soft, the air is cool, and the world is at peace, wrapped in the gentle embrace of the water and the wind. The stars are beginning to pale now, losing their sharp brilliance as the deep indigo of the midnight sky softens into a quiet, Dusty violet, it is a slow change. So gradual that if you were to blink, you might miss the moment the darkness begins to lift its heavy velvet curtain. Out here in the very center of the Pacific, there is no land to interrupt the curve of the world, and the horizon is a perfect, unbroken circle where the sleeping water meets the waking air. The air itself feels different at this hour. It is cool and clean, smelling of salt and the faint, sweet scent of damp mist that clings to the surface of the swells. There is a profound stillness in this transition, a sense that the entire planet is taking one long, rhythmic breath before the day begins, and you are there to breathe along with it, cradled by the slow, predictable rocking of the hull against the deep. Imagine the sound of the water as it slides along the side of a wooden ship, a soft, shushing noise like silk being pulled over stone. There is no urgency in the movement of the waves, only a steady, ancient pulse that has continued for millions of years, indifferent to time or the passage of travelers. The ocean at dawn is a palette of muted grays and silver, the surface looking almost solid, like polished pewter that has been rubbed smooth by a giant's hand. As the light grows, the texture of the water reveals itself in tiny details. The way a small ripple catches a glint of lavender, or how the foam from a breaking crest looks like lace discarded on a dark floor. It is a world of whispers and subtle shifts, where the only clock is the steady brightening of the eastern sky. Centuries ago, a navigator standing on a deck much like this one would have looked to the stars not as distant points of light, but as familiar friends guiding the way home. They would watch the way the constellations slowly tilted toward the horizon, noting the position of the Southern Cross or the steady glow of the North Star, using the span of their fingers to measure the distance between the sea and the sky. As the dawn approached, these celestial maps would slowly fade, tucked away into the brightness of the morning, leaving the navigator with only the birds and the clouds to read. You can almost feel the texture of the worn wooden railing under your palms, the grain of the timber smoothed by salt and sun, holding the coolness of the night. It is a grounding sensation, a reminder of the craftsmanship and the quiet patience required to cross such a vast expanse of blue. The birds are often the first to announce the coming day, appearing as tiny dark specks against the pale clouds. Perhaps it is a wandering albatross, its great wings locked in a steady, effortless glide that carries it miles without a single flap. These birds live their lives in the wind, sleeping on the wing and finding their way across thousands of miles of open water with a calm certainty that mirrors the movement of the tides. To watch one is to understand the true scale of the Pacific. It is not a barrier to be overcome, but a vast open meadow of air and water where life moves at its own unhurried pace. The albatross dips close to the surface, its shadow trailing behind it on the silver waves, a silent companion in the growing light. As the sun begins to climb toward the horizon, the colors of the world start to deepen and warm. The violet turns to a soft, dusty rose, and the gray of the water begins to reveal the incredible depth of the blue beneath. It is a blue that defies simple names, a color that feels as though it has weight and history, stretching down miles into the silent, dark canyons of the sea floor. Down there in the quiet pressure of the deep, the water is still and cold, a timeless realm where the light of the sun never reaches. Yet up here on the surface, the light is everything. It dances in the spray and warms the air, creating a gentle convection that stirs the sails and fills them with a soft, steady pressure. Think of the sailors of the past, waking in their hammocks to the smell of wood smoke and the sound of the cook fire being lit in the galley. The morning routine was a series of rhythmic, tactile tasks that anchored the crew to the ship and to each other. There was the scrubbing of the decks with heavy stones and salt water, the rhythmic back and forth motion creating a low, grinding song that hummed through the timber. There was the checking of the ropes, the hemp fibers rough and sturdy against the skin, smelling of tar and dried salt. These were the small, domestic realities of life on the great ocean, the quiet chores that turned a vast and intimidating wilderness into a home. The morning meal was simple, perhaps a bowl of warm porridge or a piece of hard bread, eaten while watching the sun finally break the line of the horizon. When the sun does appear, it does not burst forth with a shout, but rather slips quietly into view, a sliver of molten gold that turns the tops of the waves into flickering candles. The warmth hits your face like a soft blanket, a gentle reminder of the cycle of the day. The light travels across the water in a long, shimmering path, a golden road that seems to lead straight to the edge of the world. In this light, the ship feels small but safe, a tiny island of wood and life floating on an endless sea of light. The shadows on the deck are long and soft, stretching out toward the bow, marking the beginning of another day of steady progress through the blue. The Pacific is so large that it contains its own weather, its own systems of clouds and wind that move like slow, majestic animals across the surface. In the morning, you might see a rain squall in the distance, a gray curtain of mist hanging from a low cloud, moving silently across the waves. It does not bring a storm, but rather a soft, cooling wash that cleans the salt from the air and leaves the world smelling fresh and new. When the squall passes, a rainbow might arch across the sky, its colors faint and delicate against the blue, a fleeting bridge of light that vanishes as quickly as it appeared. There is no need to hurry toward it or away from it. The ship simply continues its slow, rhythmic dance with the swells, moving at the pace of the wind. As the morning progresses, the heat of the sun begins to draw the moisture from the deck, and a light haze settles over the water, softening the edges of the world. The horizon becomes a blur of silver and pearl, making it feel as though the ship is floating in a dream, suspended between the sea and the sky. This is the time for quiet reflection, for sitting on a coil of rope and watching the patterns the wind makes on the surface of the water. Each gust creates a new texture, a cat's paw of ripples that shimmers for a moment before fading back into the smooth roll of the swell. There is a visual music, a silent symphony of light and motion that requires nothing from you but your presence. In the galley, the smell of baking bread might begin to drift through the companionways, a warm, yeasty scent that speaks of comfort and the steady hands of the crew. Life on the Pacific was defined by these small, sensory anchors: the smell of the bread, the feel of the sun on your neck, the sound of the wind in the rigging. Even in the middle of the largest ocean on Earth, the human scale remained small and intimate. A ship was a universe unto itself, A wooden world where every creak and groan of the timber told a story of balance and endurance. You can feel that balance now, the way the vessel gives way to the water and then recovers. A constant swaying cradle that lulls the mind into a state of deep, peaceful observation. Imagine the vastness below you, the miles of water that hold the history of the world in their cold, silent depths. There are mountains down there taller than any on land, and valleys so deep they have never seen a single ray of light. Yet here on the surface, everything is bright and airy, a thin skin of life and warmth. The contrast is not frightening, but rather a source of wonder, a reminder of the incredible layers of the world we inhabit. The fish that leap from the water, their silver scales flashing in the sun, are visitors from that lower realm, bringing a touch of the deep into the morning air before splashing back into the blue with a soft, liquid sound. The history of this ocean is written in the wake of the ships that have crossed it, a long white line of foam that stretches back toward the past and then slowly dissolves into the waves. From the outrigger canoes of the first voyagers to the great wooden frigates of the explorers, the Pacific has been a place of slow, deliberate movement. There was no rushing across these waters. One had to wait for the winds, read the currents, and trust in the steady passage of time. This patience is built into the very atmosphere of the sea, a quality of waiting and being that settles into your bones as you watch the sun climb higher into the pale blue sky. The wind is a steady companion, a soft pressure against your cheek that carries the taste of salt and the memory of distant islands. It is a warm wind, the trade wind that blows with a reliable consistency, pushing the clouds into long, white streaks that look like pulled wool. These clouds, the fair-weather cumulus, are the signposts of the Pacific, their flat bases and fluffy tops marking the path of the steady breezes. They move in stately processions, casting slow shadows over the water that change the color of the sea from sapphire to emerald as they pass. To watch them is to understand the slow, majestic clockwork of the planet, a system of air and water that moves with a grace that is both powerful and incredibly gentle. As the morning reaches its fullness, the air becomes stiller, the sun higher, and the world settles into a quiet, radiant hum. The sounds of the ship, the creak of the mast, the snap of a sail, the murmur of voices become part of the background, a white noise that blends with the rhythmic wash of the waves. There is a profound sense of being exactly where you are meant to be, in a place where the only requirement is to exist and to breathe. The vastness of the Pacific does not feel overwhelming. Instead, it feels like a wide, open embrace, a space large enough to hold all the thoughts and dreams of the world without ever becoming crowded. The water is now a brilliant, sparkling blue, the kind of color that seems to glow from within. It is so clear that you can see the sunbeams penetrating deep into the water, long fingers of light that dance and flicker as the surface moves. You might see a sea turtle surfacing for a breath, its ancient, weathered head breaking the water with a quiet ripple before it dives back down into the cool shadows. Or perhaps a school of flying fish will scatter across the bow, their transparent wings catching the light like dragonflies as they skim over the tops of the swells. These are the small, quiet miracles of the morning, the gentle reminders of the life that thrives in this liquid wilderness. As you stand at the rail, the warmth of the sun on your shoulders and the cool spray on your face. The boundaries between yourself and the ocean begin to soften. You are a part of this movement. This rhythm, this slow transition from the dark of the night to the brilliance of the day. There is no need to think about the destination or the miles that remain. There is only the present moment. The feeling of the ship beneath your feet and the sight of the endless horizon. The world is wide and you are safe within it, carried by the same currents and winds that have guided travelers for 1,000 years. The light is now steady and golden, filling every corner of the horizon with a soft, pervasive glow. The air is warm. The wind is light and the sea is a vast, shimmering field of possibilities. Everything is in its place, moving according to the ancient laws of the tide and the sun. The day has arrived not with a roar, but with a quiet, persistent beauty that invites you to simply be, to watch and to drift along with the turning of the earth. The ship continues its slow, steady path, a tiny speck of wood and canvas on the blue expanse, moving with a grace that feels like a long, slow exhale. The sounds of the morning are soft and rhythmic, a lullaby of water and wind that speaks of peace and the simple joy of being alive in a world so vast and so beautiful. As the sun climbs toward its zenith, the shadows shorten and the world becomes a bright, clear vision of blue and gold, a place where time slows down and the only thing that matters is the steady, heartbeat pulse of the great ocean. The Pacific is a quiet teacher, showing those who cross it the value of patience and the beauty of the horizon. It is a place where the sky is bigger than anywhere else on Earth, and where the air feels as though it has traveled 10,000 miles just to reach you. In this light, in this moment, the world feels whole and healed, wrapped in a silence that is not empty, but full of the gentle music of the spheres. You can feel your breath slowing to match the swell of the water, a deep and rhythmic rising and falling that connects you to the very heart of the planet. As the morning settles into the steady heat of midday, the world becomes even more still, the light more brilliant, the blue more profound. The journey continues as it always has, one slow and steady wave at a time, moving through the heart of the world with a quiet and unwavering peace. The air is warm, the water is deep, and the horizon is a promise of endless, quiet beauty stretching out forever under the soft and watchful eye of the sun. In this vastness, there is a profound sense of rest, a feeling of being cradled by the largest thing on earth, held safe in the palm of the sea. The light is soft, the air is still, and the world is at peace, drifting slowly through the timeless blue of the morning.